just me. Good morning. You're listening to Old Town Cleveland, where you can call us here at 614-5553 or go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You now hear the familiar voice of Ron and Debbie Moore today. They're taking a well-deserved day off, a BYE, a bye weekend, as they do in sports. They do this show some 48, 50 weeks a year, and this is one of the weeks that they've chosen to take off. And trust Doc in the air chair here with an all-star assembled panel of guests here this morning. The name of the show is Taylor's Reunion, all things Taylor's Elementary School here. Wow, as I've been building this social media page, the Facebook thing, the memories have flooded in, and all the guys and gals have chimed in with stories from yesteryear. Some things, it's funny, you know, and in a short 40 years since some of us last darkened the door there or exited the place in a student capacity, the things we had forgotten, and some of them comical, some of them sad to a degree. Some of the folks that we've learned that passed on, and we'll certainly remember those guys and gals here today. Again, Taylor's Reunion here. This radio show is designed to generate interest towards a formal reunion, on-campus reunion in 2017. As I go around the horn here, I must say thanks to each and every one of my guests who's braved less than desirable weather to come down this morning. Not sure exactly what the temp is, but it's cold. It's absolutely cold. A few that could not be here. One of my committee members under the weather today, and hope to be at a reunion committee meeting again soon. But I'll go around the horn here, introduce, and I'll let you come back and talk about the times, your time at Taylor, and your best memories, best friendship made, or anything else you want to chime in on. Believe me, guys, 2 hours goes fast, and I know Mr. Driver over here has got a prior obligation, and that some of you may not be able to stay the whole time, and that's fine. We look for Mr. Wojcik. Mr. Wojcik, one of the shoot-up favorites from back in the day there. Wow, he told the stories, and he was absolutely a hit. All right, as I go around the room here, my name again is Doc. I go by on-air personality, Doc Hollywood here. For multiple reasons. We won't get into those, too many to list, but did attend Taylor's 72 through 76 myself. Debbie Gibson Crumley there. Let's get you where you can speak up there, because we'll probably, guys, you know, you're not radio friendly here or schooled. We'll say it's about 2 inches from the mic, and don't think you're screaming. Tell us about your time at Taylor's, your years, and your best memories, and what do you think about this reunion? Whatever's on your mind.
Oh, I think it's great. I think having the reunion, you know, you get to see people out in the public that you can remember their faces, but you just don't remember the names. That's just part of life, getting older. But my time was probably 73, 76, something like that, 73, 76. But had a great time. Was a cheerleader there. Loved it. A lot of good friends.
I remember that, and of course I don't know if you guys have heard a little cheesy commercial that runs on this station. I attempted to do one of the cheers from back in the day, and it was went something like, Taylor's Tigers are the best, east to east, west to west, and we're having trouble remember how the balance of it went. Anybody have any idea there? Of course, we probably needed a real, some script from back in the day. It's funny how you forget things. It absolutely is. If we'll spin the mic over to Mr. Phillips, I don't know that we ever had a conversation prior to a couple of weeks ago, I guess, 10 days ago maybe. Of course, I knew you from afar from Bradley. We shared a minute talking about the days of old, some of the sports teams there. But tell us about your time as principal there at Taylor's. Your best memories, your thoughts. Anything you want to share with us, sir?
Okay, I was at Taylor School from about 1989 till 2002, I guess, as principal. Followed John Driver, whom you'll hear from in just a few minutes here. So the school was in good shape when I went there. A lot of good memories at Taylor. It was not the most affluent part of the county, but it was the most enjoyable part of the county to me. I really enjoyed those people there, just good Bradley County, Tennessee people, and really enjoyed my time out at Taylor. We We did have a reunion there while I was there in 2000. Brought quite a few people back to the school there. They enjoyed that. While I was there, we had, I guess, some of the best memories. The thing that made my time there was the people that were, not only the students and community, but I had a great faculty. People like Carolyn Ellis that had been there for several years, Maxine Kimsey, new people that came in, like Angie Gill and Tracy. And I won't start mentioning too many people because I'll leave somebody out that I need to. Jason Robinson came in. He did his student teaching there while I was there, and then I hired him the next year. He now has his doctorate in his teaching at Lee. He did a lot of things with particularly the science. I felt like we were kind of behind in science and technology, and we got some grants, and I went to Jason and I said, I want you to concentrate on science. Let's see what we can do. So we got a few grants, and he took our program a long ways. We were able to get a portable planetarium that he used and took around to a lot of other schools, did some summer camps with students. He was named Tennessee Teacher of the Year and was named as a national winner for innovation in the classroom, dealing with the science areas. Carolyn Ellis, I'll mention again, was a state winner in the humanities program there. So we had a lot of good people there. People in the community like Johnny Norton and Howard Thompson, Paul Elrod Jr., all of those people helped make the school what it was, and it was just a really good time while I was there.
Very good. Yes, I don't know all those names. I did speak to Paul Elrod Jr. at length the other night, and wow, the untold volunteer hours he puts into that school, and as of, I think that's where he's at right now, and he was going to try to chime in and listen if he could. He had spoke about the reunion a number of years ago and had an interest to attend this. Of course, I billed it as 1970 to 2000. We surely wouldn't turn anybody away, but my thoughts are that's the core group of guys and gals that I know and would likely be interested in it, or pretty much engaged in the social media. But yes, well, so you had an all-star group there. Had lots of positives going in your direction there. Next on the panel here, if you'll pull that mic up there a couple inches there, Billy Green. We sat out here in the foyer on another twisted afternoon. The weather was shaky, and Billy's shingles had blown off his roof and had to take off half a day and go home, and got his hands all scratched up, and his eyes were wind shot, and he braved the elements to come down, and he and I sat here in the foyer and talked for some 2 hours or so and reminisced about the days of old. Some stories that I guess the statute limitations have ran out at this point. So it sounds like me and you kind of got the short end of the stick a couple times with some of the older kids, but it won't happen again. Go ahead and talk about your thoughts and your time at your years there at Taylor, please.
I certainly enjoyed the time that we got to talk the other night, and I first learned of this singing on Facebook. It struck my I'd seen it out there, but never dug into it, see what was going on. So once I accepted the request and got in the group and saw what you're trying to organize, I thought, oh, this would be good. I'd enjoy to get involved with that. I was there outside of the time range that you specified, so I thought it may still be okay.
Oh, absolutely.
67.
You man, right
67 through 75, and I'll run down the list of some of the teachers I had.
Oh, please do.
Miss Guffey, 1st grade. Thomas, 2nd grade. Williams, 3rd grade. Dillard, 4th. Mr. Bond, 5th. I think it was Mr. Henry, 6th. Mr. Porter, 7th. And Miss Samples, the 8th. All really good teachers, and I'd crossed paths with several of them throughout the years. And I've crossed paths with Mr. Kane here, parties, different places like that from time to time. I did not have him as a teacher. Mr. Driver over there, I think he was principal in my last year or two there at Taylor's, Before that, it was Bob Ingram.
Bob
And I'm
Ingram.
not sure if Mr. Hobbs was there when I first came there or not, but certainly a lot of changes at the school since those days. It's been a number of years since I've been out there, and it's really expanded. And I've read in the newspaper about some great things happening there. I think there was a huge grant recently which provided computer equipment to basically all the students for their use, which there's so much more available to students now for learning than there was then. I can remember going to the library and getting these little small orange books for all the presidents
Yeah.
and reading those books about the presidents. That was one of my favorites in the library. And who was the librarian?
Go ahead and pull that
Yeah.
mic up there if you want to.
Pauline Bratton was the librarian when I was
Okay.
there, and I'm not sure. Well,
Yeah.
she would have been when you were
Yeah.
Pauline Bratton.
Pauline
I
Bratton.
remember. And I was one of the nerdy kids, so I might have checked out a lot of books in the library. I played softball, but I was usually one of the later ones to get picked, I had my glasses, and but I had a good time there at Taylor's, except for those few instances where I won't name any names. If they're listening, they may recall bullying me a little bit, but we won't name any names there. But I'm glad to be here, and I hope we can get something going and have a good reunion next year.
Very good, very good. Dale, thank you for sharing that with us there, and remembering those teachers and taking the time out to jot that down. As we'll spin the mic over to Mr. Kane, who's had he's did double duty. He's was in also on my Truett reunion there a few months ago. It was very helpful, and I remember him from Truett and Taylor as well. Yes, Mr. Kane, talk about your time there, and I know that you were head, was it girls and boys coach or just girls?
I was first year there. Well, I came to Taylor's my first year teaching out of Lee. I went to Whitwell High School in Whitwell, Tennessee.
Okay.
Then the second year, my basketball coach at Lee, Dale Hughes, said, if you want to come to Bradley County, you've got a teaching job. So in 1974 and 75, I came to Taylor's with Mr. Driver. In that first year, he said, oh, by the way, you're going to have to coach boys and girls basketball.
By the way,
And I believe also that first year I was part-time janitor, either the first or second year. So I was, of course, I needed the money and everything, so I had a lot on me. But great community. I'd have been happy to stay there the rest of my life. But when they built Truett Junior High in 1976, all the 7th, 8th grade teachers had to move on to Truett. So,
Yes.
But it's great community, great people, great staff, teachers, the janitor, Tommy Brown. And that first year when we went, Mr. Driver was happy because it was just me, him, and Mr. Wojcik was the male teachers. The rest of them were female. So
yes. As I was making my list out, it was female, and then boom, it was Mr. Wojcik, and then it was just one. Yeah, it was they were rare there. No doubt about it there, especially the from 6th grade down. And talking about sports here, if you'll share a little bit. Yeah, I could not come up with all the teams. I know there was a competitive softball. When I remember first going out to Taylor's, competitive softball teams between each school, and I don't remember all of those. My memories are more towards the basketball. Was it Oak Grove, I assume, Waterville? Was it all of them on the circuit?
yeah, we was back then, we had the smaller elementary schools and there was large ones. Like the smaller ones was us, Valley View, Big Springs, Blue Springs, McDonald, Black
Cleveland.
Fox. East Cleveland played higher up. Charleston. There was about 7 in our division and 7 in the larger division.
7-7 split there, I see. And on the spot here, who was was the Taylor's Tigers? As we have a representative here today, my sweetheart's fuzzy house shoes over here. Taylor's Tiger. Who was was their biggest rivalry?
Probably with us, it would be Valley View because of the proximity, I would think, back during my time.
Yes, Valley View. I can remember back in that time taking the pet bus for it was almost nothing, 50 cents a quarter to take the pep bus. It seemed like that ran on a regular basis, and would have lots of good memories from going to those games. Very good
One of my
there.
best memories while coaching is when Black Fox was always the best team in a smaller division. So we was playing them over there, and I went into double overtime. We hit I think they actually went in triple overtime, but we hit a shot, with no time remaining on the clock. We'd beat them. And a referee came sliding across the floor. It's a no-go. I thought they was going to have to call the cops on me because we really got cheated. I mean, that was a big upset, but that's probably coaching, probably my greatest memory, that we should have won. I hated for the girls. I really thought they was going to have to call the police on me. I was so upset.
Sounds like what happened to the 1972 Olympic men's basketball team there, and we won't get into that. But very, very well. Thank you for sharing that with us there, and didn't know those rivals there, and I don't have any independent recollection of that particular game. But I know my memories also that the basketball coaches would have I remember boys more than I do girls. When the school, before classes, we would all assemble in the gym before being dispersed first class, first period. You'd have them during basketball season, especially shoot out there. And I can remember my good buddy, Anthony Sherlin. He would seek me out in the crowd, and he would kind of bounce the ball, and it'd go through his arms. And, and more times than not, Anthony hit a pretty good shot out there. I don't think it was an NBA three-pointer, but he was definitely impressive, and I always like to see those guys and gals out there warming up. As we spin the mic on around, thank you for sharing that with us. We'll go to we got a late arrival here, and we're glad to have him here, Mr. Wojcik. If we'll spin that mic a couple inches there, and it's just real informal. Thank you so much for taking my call. I guess 3 weeks ago or so, and we haven't seen each other cross paths, and I guess in excess nearly 40 years, good round number. I know it makes it sound old. Let's go ahead there, as I've got you up now.
Okay. I just want to say that we're going to have one problem here because my wife says I never make a short story. So we may be here till about 3 o'clock.
That sounds good.
I'll tell you, I had wonderful memories at Taylor School. I think I was there from 74 to 86, and I had graduated from Lee, and I spent my first year at North Lee, and then my second year Mr. Walker sent me to Taylor's, and Mr. Driver, nice principal that he was, started me off with a split grade of 5th and 6th graders.
I was in that class.
And then I remember the very next year, he said, Norm takes a split grade 6th and 7th. And I said, what? I said, that's split grade. But Mr. Driver did something very good to me with that split grade class. He gave me, and he said, Norm, if you take them, I will give you the cream of the crop. And he gave me the cream of the crop of the 7th grade and the 6th grade, and that was one of the best years there. When I was working with those kids, cream of the crop. And I have such good memories. I mean, I really do. And I'll tell you one thing, what I liked about Mr. Driver, he later became principal at Bradley because I eventually got to Bradley as a guidance counselor. What I liked about Mr. Driver is the support that he gave his teachers. The support I felt from him at Taylor School and the support I felt from him at Bradley High School and everything. So I really appreciate Mr. Driver and everything that he did. But what I enjoyed about, first of all, what I really enjoy about Taylor School, the kids and the families they came to. I think when I was driving over here, I was listening to the program, and someone mentioned about the families and the people that live in that community. I really enjoyed them. They were so supportive. The families of that community were so supportive of the school. And I really, really thought a lot about that. That was very important to me. And they really were very kind people.
Very good. It seems to be a theme here. And I know talking to Paul Elrod Jr. again the other night, a great support there at the school. I must, the show is not about me, and it's not about any type of fundraising. I'm not benefiting whatsoever from it. Just happened to be in this position, and but I did want to toot my own horn here that Mr. Wojciech, you probably do not remember, but some 41 years ago, back in 1975, I still have my mathematics award here. I don't know how I achieved that. It was in that split class that you spoke of, the small amount of fifth graders. It was majority of it was sixth graders. Did walk away with the mathematics award still year. This is the original document here. Norman T. Wojciech and of course John Driver there. You take a look at that, my God, take you down memory lane there a little bit.
Hey, I still have that same signature. Lo and behold.
It's amazing after 40-something years, huh?
And if you'll notice the way your name is written, and that little fancy thing. Before I went, even before I entered the Air Force, and I'm really glad I entered Air Force because the GI Bill paid for my education, and I'm glad of that.
Yes, sir.
But I went to culinary arts school.
Yeah.
And that's the type of thing you'd put on cakes. That is something, But I want to tell you, I got to tell you some things I enjoyed. I don't know if I started the first or second year I was there when you were there, Parrish, but towards the end of the school year, just when you kind of wrapping everything up and a thing like that, I used to have a talent show. I don't know if I started doing that when you were there or later on.
I do not recall that. I do recall the infamous Mr. Wojciech stories you would tend to tell before or after recess, maybe during. You'd do look like you're in a glass jar, and it was, I don't remember words you said, but it was absolutely captivating. There was nobody messing around. They were all focused on Mr. Wojciech.
Well, I figured at that time, you come from lunch and you're kind of sleepy and everything. So I used to like to, tell a story, or I would read a book. I remember an author, Robert Newton Peck. He was a farm boy from Vermont, and I would read some of his books, a chapter a day, and the kids really could relate to him, even though he was way up in a farm in Vermont. One book they really enjoyed is when the day no pigs would die. That's when his father passed away, and they couldn't slaughter the hogs. But anyway, I would either do that or tell a story. Some of you out there probably remember Slim and Slappy. Slim and Slappy were two cowboys.
Okay.
Guy with a sidekick. And I would just make up stories as I went. In fact, I remember, if Carla Cry is out there, if you remember, I was stuck because I would just make it up as I go. And I was kind of stuck, and I didn't know which way to take the story. And Carla Cry said, "Now, class, just take it easy. Mr. Wojciech's thinking about how he's going to take this thing." And you probably remember that fantastic story about Slim and Slappy. This were out in the Old West. They were in St. Louis, and they had to bring this big glass mirror, a picture mirror, all the way to San Francisco. And they had it, in a wagon. And they had rustlers and Indians and things like that. But they finally got it safe there, But then when the guy put it up, it broke. But anyway, the stories and everything.
Yes.
But going back to the talent show, I used to have a talent show at the end.
Okay.
And kids, do whatever you want to do. Bring in your instruments, do a comedy routine, do whatever you want to do. And I still remember some of the things. And if talking about here, I'm really sorry I forgot your first name, but
Yeah, I go about
Elrod.
Doc.
Doc who?
Doc Hollywood.
Franklin Elrod's sister. What was her name?
Franklin Elrod's, let's see, there was sister, let's see, I did talk to Franklin
Chrissy Elrod. Now, she did a gymnastic or a dance routine, which was fantastic.
Yes.
These kids, when, I said, whatever you want to do. If you want to do ventriloquism, or if you want to bring in your pet hog and do whatever. But one of the ones I really enjoyed, too, was these four girls. Hee-haw was very popular at that time. And these four girls dressed the routine, got the big wash tub, and they did that. We don't go around spreading rumors. We're just not the gossiping kind. I mean, they were fantastic. They were good. But those routines I really liked. And then going to the serious side of teaching and learning. because I felt we sometimes had some good times, but you have to teach the kids their ABCs and all that, all that stuff. But what I did, what my thought was, if you could get kids out of their seats and physically doing something, they would not only learn it better, but they would retain it for a long period of time because they're actually involved. And I remember we were doing the Civil War, and we did a slave auction. And I was the director. I picked kids who'd be the plantation owners. Some would be the slaves and everything. And I would direct them. And I remember I told this one kid who was a plantation owner that you're going to bid just on the father. They brought a family up. They had I had someone playing the mother and the father and the little boy, and the slave owner just wanted the father. And we were doing this, bidding and things like that. And I had the mother and the boy and the son saying, don't take my daddy or don't take my husband and everything like that. And there was a girl named Elisa Morgan. She stood up and said, Mr. Wojcik, that's not right. She really got upset because they were separating this family.
Right.
She said, that's not right. And I said, Lisa, if you lived in that time, you'd be an abolitionist, because the abolitionists were against slavery and everything, and so I remember that thing. And then I remember Lamar Trotter. We were doing the first battle of the American Revolution, and we went outside. I told the kids, now listen, tomorrow, the ones that I picked as the redcoats, wear something red, and then bring your toy guns.
Yes, sir.
And so they brought their toy guns and everything. And I had some guys who were the people who were the British soldiers and the patriots, everything. Ozer Matthews. Ozer, if you're there, remember you were hyper. You were hyper the whole time. So what I had you as Paul Revere.
Yeah.
So we went on the playground. And Ozer, I said, okay, you're Paul Revere. I had the British soldiers. They're marching. Okay, they're coming. Go get the Minutemen. And he's running all over. The British are coming. The British are coming. He was going all over the field and everything, tuckering him out. So when we get back to class, we'd be a little tired because we did it a couple of times. Okay, but here's the funny part. I get the British soldiers, and I showed them how the British soldiers would fight. The ones kneeling, of course, they would shoot first, while the ones standing would reload, and then vice versa. But I had them standing up there, and I had the one who was Major Parker. I said, okay, you go out there and you say, disperse ye rebels in the name of the king. So he goes out there and he says, disperse ye rebels in the name of the king. And Lamar Trotter shouted out, tell the king to sit on it. I just remember a lot of stuff. I really enjoyed my years at Taylor School. I really did, and I hope that all the time was happening that kids were getting some learning.
Well, absolutely was. Looked like I was acing the math test there, I guess. And I'll share this with you that split class, and of course you guys will remember there was in the new building that there was a vent system that ran underneath the classroom there. If you were looking at it on a down angle, it was like an H pattern. And on occasion, some of us guys, when we would catch you out of the room, Mr. Wojcik, we would pull that vent cover off and hop down in there. Now, we had to, no, Mr. Driver, I can see him over there. Yeah, we would hop down in there, and it would go in an H pattern, and we would be on our hands and knees, and I had a little cheap flashlight, and it would we could crawl underneath and come out right behind the trophy case in the cafeteria. But there was some vents there, some permanent vents, and we actually took a jump rope on one occasion. Hope the statute of limitations ran out here, by the way. We took a jump rope from the gym one time, and me and a couple other guys, and I guess they should remain nameless, we tried our darndest. I think all three of us was down there at one time trying to yank those pipes loose. We get further down and closer to the cafeteria there. So forgive me. That's 40 years later. And to finish up the vent story.
When did you do that?
You were busy telling stories. But and we had to watch and make sure it did not rain. Now here's when it would rain, there would be about a couple of inches of water accumulate in that vent. And Mr. Driver's acknowledging over there, shaking his head. During some of our spare time or study hall or whatever we had, we would take popsicle sticks from our art projects and glue those things together with Elmer's glue. And I would take one of us would take a twist tie off of a loaf of bread and make a little hook on it. And it had a fishing string and a fish hook. And we would sit there during class trying to fish that raft out of that 2 inches of water from that vent. Never knew it went on. I'd give anything for that raft some 40 years ago. Debbie, did you know any of that went on? Well, all right. Well, check out Debbie Gibson Crumley.
Yeah, when I came in, I heard Greg here talking about basketball. He probably doesn't remember this. Of course, when I went to Taylor School, they were going to have me as the basketball coach also too. But remember, Greg, you had the girls, and that one year, first year I was there, you took the boys too. And then the second year, you stopped having the boys, just the girls. So I got the boys, but then the next year they had Truett, so that took. So just that 1 year, I was basketball coach. Out of all the sports, I hate basketball. And the reason why I hate basketball is I know those guys travel, and the guys don't call. I mean, those basketball players and whatever, they're at half court, and it seems like they take all their steps and don't even bounce one time and dunk the ball. So I mean, I think they travel, but anyway, that's what so I'm glad it was just 1 year. But we were playing. Well, first of all, let me say it was bad news bears for me. We lost every game, but then we got an invitational to Polk County, and we won our first game. We beat Turtletown.
Oh, very good there.
That was it. But anyway, we were playing North Lee, and the girls played first, and the boys played last. Okay, well the girls and really the coaches or the referees of that game were really against us. Oh man, I remember some of the calls and plays and everything like that, and I know you were kind of upset with that, So when the girls lost, and plainly, man, it seemed like the ref.
That was Black Fox. I was telling them.
Oh, was that Black Fox?
Black Fox. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna be 71 next month, so that's why sometimes you forget. Sometimes I'm glad I'm not a railroad engineer. I keep losing my train of thought. But anyway, I remember the girls lost the game, and then we went out, and you were really upset with the calling of the refs, and so we'd be playing, and you'd yell out to the okay ref, and the ref came up to me and said, listen, you better tell your fellow coach there to settle down, or I'm going to call a technical on you. I said, Greg, okay. And sure enough, you did that. And they called the technical on me. And I'm wondering, what in the world? I had nothing to do with this, and they called a technical on my team. But I wonder if you remember that.
I thought they was going to arrest me. I was telling them. I was so upset for that girl's name.
Then that must have been the one I was talking about. But that's right. They called a technical on me because you're telling, okay, ref, get your glasses on or something like that while the boys were playing. And I remember I said, Greg, sit down. And they called a technical on me. I remember that. Anyway.
Yeah. I'll say one thing about Norman, because he's got so many stories. If I'm not mistaken, he's taught straight across from me, and I'd stop during the story time of day and let my kids hear stories. Because the man loved kids, probably the best teacher I've ever been around. Every day, it could be 20 degrees. They would go out and play softball. Every day, he would take them out. And probably one of the funniest stories on him, I was looking out the window of something one day, and there goes a kid run down the road, and right behind him goes Norman. Mm-hmm. It's like, who was that?
Well, I don't know. I'll just tell you, his last name was Weaver.
Yelling, run hard.
Remember Weaver? Last name. Yeah, he just ran out of my class,
and there goes Norman.
I just followed him down the road, and I got him.
I remember that vividly. Yeah, it was once 10-day, 20-day occurrence. It seemed like wow. And Billy Gray was talking about that the other night. I can't imagine that scenario today. Let me get Mr. Driver in there. We'll pull that mic up. He's sitting there acknowledging a lot. I'm sure he's had lots of thoughts since we've been sitting here. Mr. Driver, tell us about your time, your years there as principal at Taylor. Of course, you went through you were in charge there when the transition took place, when the 7th and 8th grade were eliminated, for lack of better wording there, eliminated, and maybe talk about that, the positive, negatives involved in that transition as well, please.
Well, I want to make sure that no one thinks we eliminated any grades over there. We did move them to Truett. In fact, when I first got there, Taylor's was a K through 8 school, and it was we probably had 350 or so. And the second year I was there, we had about 400. So and we just had the 2 buildings. I don't know if y'all remember or not, but other than the gym, there was just what I called the old building. It had 6 classrooms and a library. And then we had the new building, which had 4 classrooms and a cafeteria. And that was it. And we housed about 400 kids in those 2 buildings, which today, most people wouldn't believe that we had 35. Well, I know Greg had 40 kids in a room.
Wow.
Debbie probably had 35 or 40 in her classroom every year. Yeah. And so, those days have changed, thankfully. When Mr. Phillips came along, he straightened out all those split grade situations and took care of those things.
If I can interject just a minute, we did get a new building when I was there, and I remember the county commission talking about funding that, and one of the county commissioners, and I won't name names, wanted to know for what grades, and we're talking about for kindergarten, primarily in kindergarten, maybe first grade. And he said, well, we don't need a new classroom. Said we can get a lot of those kids in a classroom. They're small. So, he just thought we could go ahead and get up to 50 or 60 maybe in that.
Well, but after Truett was built, it really helped us out quite a bit. When Truett Junior High School, and it was a junior high. It was 7 through 9. Mr. Kane went there, and so did Miss Samples, and so we lost 2 really fine teachers, and that left Mr. Wojcik over there in the new building, what I call the new building. Yeah. He was the sixth grade teacher, I believe, 5th and 6th, okay. But, even then, we lost the 6th grade. We just, Taylor, the community out there just kept getting bigger and bigger, and eventually we had to send our 6th grade. So when I left Taylor's in 89, it was a K through 5 school, which I guess that's probably what it is today, is my assumption, or they're K through 5. But what I remember is when I first got there, the old building had no air conditioning. The new building did have air conditioning. And so those parents in that community got together, and they really worked hard, raised money, and we bought window air conditioners from J.C. Penney. I can remember we bought them from J.C. Penney, and we put a window air conditioner in each one of those classrooms in that old building. And that made a lot of difference for the kids and the teachers. And that old building was also heated by, and Mr. Phillips could have been the same thing, but it was heated by an old coal boiler. And that boiler was underneath one of the 2nd grade classrooms. Mrs. Pat Kibble was there when I was there, and it was under her classroom. And Miss Kimsey, may have been under Miss Kimsey's also. And I can remember we had a wet spring in the boiler sat in the basement, and we had a wet spring down there. Yeah, there was no fence, there was no gate when we were there, and so there was a steep stairway down to the boiler room, and when it would rain, when that old coal boiler would sometimes just flood out because that pump would quit working. Yeah. And I'd have to go down there and restart that old coal. So eventually what happened was they put a propane heater in there to boil it. And I thought that would take care of things. Well, guess what? That old little pilot light on that gas thing, it would flood out. So every now and then that heat was just a problem. It really was. But I don't know what they have out there today, but I'm sure it's in a better environmentally. I'm sure it's in a better situation. But that was I can just remember that was a learning experience for me. That old boiler and that old having to work that, and the new building worked fine. I mean, it was central heat and air, and it was in good shape. And then eventually they did build another building while I was there, and I think. Maybe with Mr. Phil, I don't know how many buildings they've got up there now, but they've got more buildings than when I first came. So, I do think that I want to say that the teachers at Taylor School were, I think were exceptional teachers. Mr. Wojcik, everybody, he was very popular, and you'd think that would be great, but it caused a problem for me. The problem that it caused for me was that every summer, the parents and the kids would call my office, and they would request Mr. Wojcik to be their teacher. Well, of course, I had to make a decision. Not everybody, I couldn't put all 50 kids. I couldn't put all 50 kids, so I had to make decisions about who. But eventually, we did do where they moved around from teacher to teacher, and so Mr. Wojcik had all the kids part of the day.
Social studies,
Right.
And I know another teacher did the science, and another
Right.
teacher did the math.
They used to call that departmentalization, but I'm not sure what they call it now. But they called it departmentalization. But the community. You talk about Paul Elrod Jr., great guy to work with. The Ruritan people out there, the dairy farm. I remember the dairy farms that surrounded the school, and it was just a very pleasant community to work in. The people were so willing to raise money to help out the kids and the teachers in that school. It was a really good experience.
And speaking of the community helping, and they did buy all the air conditioners, like you said, I think also, if I'm not mistaken, that's the only school in the county where the community got together and built the gym.
Yeah.
The gym was built by people in the community rather than the Board of Education.
Yeah. What was the first year that gym was up?
I think it was 72.
72?
Thinking that's what it was.
72?
Yeah. They started building in 72. I'm not sure if it opened in 72. Debbie, you might.
This.
Okay. It was right before Greg and Norman and I got there. It was there when we got there.
That was a big thing.
Yeah. And that gym had bleachers on both sides. Most of those other gyms that the school board built at those other schools only had bleachers on the one side. So we had a pretty neat outfit there.
Very good, Darryl. Well, yes, thanks for sharing that with us. And Mr. Driver, I've made a few notes here. I remember having independent recollections of you pretty much on a daily basis. You had your little, I wouldn't call it concession stand, but it was the wooden 5 by whatever it was, swing open the door, and all the kids would line up there and get their...
Every morning we had a bookstore.
Bookstore.
We called it the bookstore, and we sold mainly pencils, papers, erasers, cough drops.
Cough drops.
Probably, I bet, they love the cough drops. And one thing I found out about kids was that the kids who came to the bookstore, the kids would have the money in their hand, and most of them would know the coins. They would know exactly
how much it cost.
And they had the money in their hand for it. If they brought a dollar bill, then that was another situation. They knew they were going to get some change, but they didn't know exactly how much they were going to get. But it was a good little thing for not only the kids, but for me. I got to see the kids each morning that came, and the bookstore did make a little money to pay for things like mimeograph paper and things like that.
I was going to add a note here about the teachers' lounge. I know, and I don't remember anything in the old building, but the new building, right when you left the cafeteria there, to go into some of the classrooms there, immediately on the left, you could, my recollection is you could smell that Xerox or Ditto type paper. It was just really, really rich. You have a memory of that as well, Billy?
Teachers today all have copying machines, like everybody does. But in those days, we had what was called, it wasn't even I called it mimeograph. That's not what it was called. It was an old, it ran on alcohol, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You could turn it, or we had an electric one eventually, but they had a purple stencil. The stencil would last for about 30 copies, and it would come out purple. And that alcohol, it was some kind of denatured alcohol. It would just put that purple thing on your paper. So
on your hands.
If you went ahead and you would say, I remember typing out, test papers and everything, or typing out a question, and you misspelled it, I would have to take a razor blade and cut that out and type the word on another stencil and cut that out and paste it over that, So
that was our technology when I was there. Now, when Mr. Phillips came along, he got a lot of that changed, and he was the technological guy. So something, education, that's been in my opinion, that's been the big difference. In the late 80s, mid 80s to late 80s, people started becoming technological. and that was a big change for education.
Try to pull up some comments from the Facebook page there. Some people shared, again, lots of interesting stories. And for a minute here, to date this show in a time capsule, so to speak, in light of the recent bus tragedy in Hamilton County, Chattanooga, I'd posted on our Facebook page. I know Debbie had saw that as well, and I guess you guys are on the page there. During my time there, I do not have an independent recollection of a reportable bus accident. There may have been beyond a fender bender, and my post was thank goodness for James and Sammy York. And, of course, we had several others on the page chime in who their bus driver was. And
Jamie Bryson.
Jamie Bryson, who I understand just recently passed away.
Sarge.
Sarge.
Was Sarge female?
Yes.
We were struggling on the page. Does anybody have a proper name? We knew that she had the reputation for being tough and rumored to have been former military, maybe. I don't know if that was hype or whatever. There was buses that I'd forgotten about, Arms 1 and Arms 2. What was that about? Anybody clear that up? Anybody have any recollection? And then there was a Bryson 1 and a Bryson 2.
The reason you had 1 and 2 was what happened was, especially back in the early 70s, was the high school. There was no junior high. So we waited. We ran a bus around 3 o'clock from Taylor's Elementary. And then they went to the high school, picked up the high schoolers. Then they came back to Taylor's, and it was 4:30. We were there till 4:30 waiting on the high school bus to take another group of kids out. So you had a 1 and a 2.
That's why when we had bus duty, I always wanted the morning. I didn't want those afternoons. Sometimes I had to wait till 4:30.
I understand. I do that. Of course, it was, I guess we won't say the name, but somebody chimed in on the Facebook page, Taylor's Reunion Facebook page, or then sound of my voice. Feel free to like the page. That it was a known thing that one bus driver in particular would allow smoking on the last 3 seats of the bus, and on occasion perhaps bummed a cigarette from one of the students. Of course, I have an independent recollection of the bus driver smoking a cigarette and throwing either out the door or the little side window. And of course, we had somebody chime in and say that yes, Sammy York stopped the bus one day right in the middle of the road and jerked me out of my seat and paddled the stew out of me. And we said, well, what for? He said, for doing Tarzan yells. So apparently Sammy York was not a fan of Tarzan. He should have tried Yabba Dabba Doo maybe. But I think those bus drivers they had somebody chimed in that maybe one of the Yorks had a paddle hanging right there at their rear view mirror. It is definitely a tough job, and like I say, did you guys as principals or there remember any type of reportable incident with a bus in your time there? Maybe Mr. Phillips.
We did have one accident that I remember. It was right on Water Level Highway, just as the bus started to turn right onto Kinzer Road. There was an accident. A car hit a bus, I think, and we ended up taking some kids to the hospital, but primarily as precautionary. I don't think anybody was admitted or anything, but that was an accident. Of course, anytime a school bus has an accident, then the highway patrol is involved in it and so forth. But we did have that one, and then, but like you've said and other people have said, we had great bus drivers, and for the most part, they had very few problems on the bus, and as a result, we had very few problems at the bus. I think Howard had buses for a while. Howard Thompson had buses for a while, and the Calfies and of course Sarge we've already mentioned, and some of those people. But they did a great job getting kids where they belonged and getting them there safely.
Very good. Someone had said there was a bus driver with a nickname of Slick, but never could put a name with it. It went right over my head. Any kind of that may have just been their own personal giving there, given name. Well, that's good. That's very good. Thank goodness to those drivers, and nothing really serious happened during our time there, and hope that continues on there at Taylor's. Yeah, we'll work on that here in a minute. Thank you for putting that out. This is Whoop Radio here, powered by hamsters and gerbils. If you don't know, they're in the back working their tails off, and sometimes little things crop up, and we won't let that slow us down. Okay, we've been around the horn there, talked about our time, and the elementary school thing there, K through, I think Taylor today is K through 5. I've been on the campus recently at the fall festival. Yeah, there's one complaint. Where do I make out a complaint at here? Because I went out to the fall festival as it is today, some months ago, and it was an extravaganza. I mean, from the big slip and slide, not water, but just airfield jump. Had the old basketball court beside the gym with the lined up the the bowling ball pins, roll the thing, and ring toss. And, it was an all-day event. The current principal out there, Miss Elizabeth Kaler, although she was very busy, took a few minutes out to speak to me, and we hope to get together for a formal reunion, on-campus reunion there date in 2017. But I did speak to her while they were, it's a big fundraiser, I guess, for the school there, and had the gymnasium, had the the silent auction, or whenever you fill out the piece of paper. Well-run event. I mean, they had, monitors placed out, and fantastic professionally run event there. And what my complaint was that, I would share with Mr. Driver there, come on in there. The other night that, our fall festival from back in the day was, there was a curtain in one of our own classrooms over in the corner with covered up. We're supported by a clothesline itself, and a drape put over it, and then you cast a little bean pole thing over it, and somebody was over there sticking a bag of Golden Flake potato chips or Fritos or whatever on it, and that was to see that fall festival now, what it has evolved to, and I guess a lot of that depends on the weather as well. I guess there was a rain date, but it was really a really well run thing out there, and I'm sure they benefited financially from it. You guys, maybe the principals here talk about, you guys carried on that tradition. It's been, I guess, since during your time, fall festivals.
Yeah, we had to have the fall festival. Most people probably that think about school funding don't realize that there's very little discretionary money in the school, and so in order to do some things that the school wants to do or needs to do, the school has to have those kinds of fundraisers in order to get some of that extra money to do some things that you want to do for teachers, for students, and the community.
Very good.
And I remember when I first came to Taylor, they even had Prince and Princess contest, King and Queen contest.
I had forgotten about that.
Where the kids, whoever made the most money was the king and the queen. That was the way it worked.
Maybe that phase has been eliminated nowadays, the popularity contest type thing. But yes, I can remember my brother did win that. It was like a little crown, and it had velvet underneath it. It was like you were king and queen. That's basically what it was. It was who could raise the most money. And some of my memorabilia, as I've got scattered out across the station, I'm sure I'm not making a good impression on you guys here. But this little flyer I've got from the 4th grade, 1974. May have been Mr. Driver who delivered the news. Perhaps it was still Bob Ingram at that time, that the 4th grade class under Miss Suits, Diane Suits, had raised the most money. And as Debbie Gibson Crumley's over here acknowledging that, remember, has that memory, that we had raised the most money in that side of the school, the old building. And our reward was, we didn't know that was an incentive at the time, Debbie, that I think it was sprang on us, or maybe sprang on us just as after the fact. But nevertheless, we did make the trip to Chattanooga, and we were on, the 4th grade class was on the Bob Brandy show. Yes, it was. It was our reward. I remember sitting on the horse and through the bean toss or whatever, bean bag, didn't come nowhere close. I think one of our classmates, Debbie, you might have an independent recollection, threw the ball through the bean bag and hit the light fixtures, which are similar to this in the radio station here. And I think we were served moon pies or golden flake chips, and for some reason that particular day were out of the RC colas or something. So we had to tough it out there. But that is my memory there, and the fall festivals and the King and Queen thing there. Really enjoyed that. And I understand that some years ago somebody wrote into News Channel 9 if there was any archives, and there was basically none, that the film was either recorded over or destroyed. So that only exists in our memories now before the VHS tapes and recording devices that we have today. Very good. Thank you so much there, sharing about the Taylor's Fall Festival thing. And I want to whip the mic around, put her on the spot here. I think I know who she is, but don't know that we ever had a class. But let's let her go ahead and introduce yourself there and talk about your time at Taylor's. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. At Taylor, I was Karen Mosley. Everybody knew me as Miss Mosley. And heard some great stories, great memories, great people, wonderful people out there in that community. And I still see them, talk to them. Nicole Yearwood even sang in my wedding. A lot of good things that I remember. But my fondest, well, not really my fondest, was I used to go walking at the mall every morning before I would go to teach. And so they opened the mall about 6, and I'd walk, so I'd go to Taylor. Well, that morning, Mr. Stepp's cows were out. So it was so well lit out there with that one street light way in the back of the school. And I'm thinking, if someone comes around that curve, they're going to hit some of these cows. So I'm out there, playing cowgirl, trying to get these cows out of the road and everything. So I finally get them kind of situated, and I go in the office, and I call Mr. Stepp and tell him, I said, Mr. Stepp, your cows are out. Okay. I turn around and look, and we had light beige carpet. There were green footprints everywhere I looked. It was on the carpet. It was on my brand new white walking shoes. And the janitor had to come in and shampoo the carpet and everything else. So from then on, if the cows were out, I just called and said, Mr. Stepp, your cows are out. I'm not running them. And Sarge's real name is Marilyn Nagel.
Marilyn Nagel.
She was in the Marines.
Okay.
And I saw her picture in the paper the other day from the Chattanooga. She was down there at the Chattanooga National Cemetery, doing something the other day. So but her name.
Very good. Thank you for providing that. We'll have to try to make an effort to reach out to her for the Ormond on campus. Yeah, that's a good story. Yes, I can remember Taylor's there seeing the across the way, the fields and cattle, and there was a silo